Epic Gaming Night is sponsored by Tasty Minstrel Games. Make sure to check out the Tasty Minstrel podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. This podcast is made possible by the support of patrons like you. Thanks for your support. Welcome to the Epic Gaming Night podcast, a podcast about the stories and relationships board games create. I'm your host, Roy Canny, and with me as always is Rob.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, what's up? And today we have a special guest, Chris from, I hope I'm not getting the company's name wrong, but Modiphius Games, or Modiphius Entertainment.
Yeah, Modiphius is fine.
Nice.
Yeah, hi, guys.
Awesome. But we have you on the show today to talk all about the Fallout game that you guys are putting out, the miniatures game. But tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do over there.
Well, I started Modiphius 5 years ago. It's actually 5 years ago in April with my wife, Rita. And we just started in a little basement flat in London and started with our Acton Cthulhu role-playing game, which is basically World War II plus Cthulhu, as it is.
That's awesome. And
did a big Kickstarter for that, and we've grown since then, doing lots of cool role-playing games. And then we did the Thunderbirds co-op board game with Matt Leacock.
Nice.
And last year, the Siege of the Citadel board game Kickstarter with Richard Borg, and Airfix Battles, the kind of introductory war game. So that's been so we've done a lot of role-playing games, but starting to do more board games now as well.
You sure it's only 5 years? I got you down at 6.
Well, yeah, technically 6. If because I had a T-shirt company called Joystick Junkies for about 13 years. So we started doing Modiphius basically with 2 PDF adventures.
Okay.
So drive through for Acton Cthulhu, and I was still running the T-shirt company, thinking this would be a bit of fun on the side. And then, of course, Kickstarter came along, and we did the big Kickstarter, and I left to go full time. So I left the world of clothing.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Super exciting.
It is very exciting.
So how did you get into gaming and miniatures gaming and things like that in general?
Well, I mean, I had the usual kind of, my brother got me into Dungeons and Dragons when I was probably I think I was about 8.
Nice.
I remember the day me and my friend Johnny were playing toy soldiers and making machine gun sounds and mowing down our plastic figures. And then I went, why don't we roll a dice? And that's how many figures you're allowed to push over. He's like, yeah, that's a cool idea. And then, okay, tanks get 2 dice. And then we wrote all these rules. So I remember that was kind of like one of my first kind of forays into gaming. And then I devised a whole war game system for Lego, so I could do giant battles with tiny bricks. And
what was that?
Yeah, and then I was with my mum visiting her sister who had a cattery, and I'm allergic to cats. It wasn't the best weekend away, and so we were in this knitting shop as you are, and at the back they had this wall of games, and I discovered this game called Ogre, Steve Jackson's Ogre, which is I don't know if you remember, like the little hex-based combat game, and they had loads of the other all those little Ziploc bag meta games back then, and picked up this game Ogre because it had this big tank on it that looked really cool, and it was cheap. I think it was like £3 or $3 at the time, and scratched my head over Ratio Combat for the weekend. But it was like, oh my God, this game's amazing. And then I discovered a shop called Dungeons and Starships in Birmingham in London that was in Birmingham in the UK, and that had all loads of different what we call fantasy games basically at the time. It wasn't tabletop games, it was all fantasy games, whether it was sci-fi or fantasy or whatever. And discovered Starships and Spacemen, that was basically Star Trek.
Oh, nice.
With 5 fantasy games unlimited, I think it was. And then Metamorphosis Alpha, Gamma World, all that, all the alternatives to D&D. And
Dude, I grew up with Gamma World like crazy. That's sort of what started me into the thing, was Gamma World.
Yeah, and Metamorphosis Alpha by Jim Ward was like kind of the precursor to that, because it was, you know, it was the idea. I remember my brother running a game of D&D for me. I thought it was D&D, but I was starting as this really crap native villager who was being sent on a journey, and then I found what sounded like he was describing was a gun. I was like, this is weird. And then I figured out how to use it using this system. And I, you know, and this is like, you know, I was completely new to role-playing games. I'd played D&D a few times, so I didn't know the rules of this. I didn't have a copy.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're like, oh, well, this isn't the Dungeons and Dragons dice system. You know, this is early days, right? And then I came across, I think the end of our session, we didn't have much time because he was off to university, was discovering this big metal wall. And my mind was blown because I was like, oh my God, I'm on a spaceship. And, you know, because the whole idea of Metamorphosis Alpha is gamma, you know, you're the what's left of the crew and the colonists of a big spaceship that is, every level is hundreds of miles wide. And, you know, so you're basically in a fantasy realm with talking badgers and plants that will try and eat you and age-old robots. And it's as lethal as it gets. So anyway, so I got into that, and then Star Frontiers, which has just been released again on drive-through. So I had a big, you know, loved role-playing games as a kid, but I also got into war games. So I was collecting, you know, second-hand or friends' sort of Citadel and Raoul Parther fancy miniatures, painted stuff from war game shows. And I made my own fantasy war game battles, which weirdly enough, I just found the other week, all my old stories. I wrote up all the battles.
That's awesome.
I'm refight it using some new rules recently. And actually, I've still got the old rules, hilariously enough. They're actually all right. And then I started playing 15mm Napoleonics, got my other brother into that, and he's now a big war gamer. And grew through Renaissance 15mm war games, like English Civil War, into, you know, eventually dabbling with a bit of Warhammer with a friend who I met in London. And then we wrote Star Blazer Adventures together years later. And when we were sitting around playing Warhammer till 2 a.m, and then we would spend the rest of the night eating pizza and drinking Diet Coke, dreaming up gaming worlds, as you do, and came up with this universe called Modiphius, that was an artificial planetary system built by these ancient aliens, and they collected all these slave races together that happened to be like orcs and elves and humans. So we kind of had this sort of pseudo fantasy sci-fi war game, role-playing game that we created. And I remember we were copying artwork from Star Frontiers and all sorts of places just to illustrate it, and some friends do some artwork. And I printed up nicely and gave a copy to Mike Pondsmith from our Talsorian Games. He's a lovely guy. And he was like, oh, yeah, Chris, thanks very much. And never got back to me. Rubbish. But anyway, so we always said if we started a games company, it would definitely be called Modiphius. So when I started it, it was like the obvious name. And
that's awesome.
That, you know, then from then on, I've been into my hex-based war games, my miniature war games, sci-fi, fantasy, you name it, and role-playing games. You know, I've probably had every single one, but I kind of drifted in and out of gaming because at the same time I was in the music business for quite a few years. So I was doing like big techno nights on Friday nights and Saturday nights till 9 in the morning, and that's not to a gaming life. So I kind of drifted away from it for a bit, and then came back thinking, surely, you know, books have got to be gorgeous now, and came back and there were still these boring books full of black text and really rubbish art that looked like your mate had drawn it from school.
Yeah.
The big games were like that, and it was just so I was like, I cannot believe they've not changed in like 5 years so then, you know, kind of I got more into board games at the time, and you know, everything from like things like zombies to I mean, it's obviously before Kickstarter days, so a lot of the old kind of Games Workshop board games and things.
Yeah.
And was always playing around with my own ideas. And then when I had the T-shirt company Joystick Junkies, I was licensing or doing some work with DC Thompson, which is a big comic book publisher in the UK that used to do like Beano and the Dandy. And in the 60s, they would sell 60 million copies of each comic book. Yeah, but this is in the days when every guy would probably order half a dozen comic books. Every kid would have 5 to 10 comic books delivered a week. Even adult guys and girls would have them delivered because there were no video games. You know, going to the cinema was a special night. So comic books were there wasn't really sci-fi novels. So it was like where you got your kind of sci-fi adventure fix. And so they also had this comic called Star Blazer that was like a little digest size comic that was 70 pages, a whole story in that 70 pages, and it was all pre 2000 AD artists. A lot of the guys that went on to do 2000 AD were drawing it, and it was all black and white. None of the stories were really linked to each other, but they had all these great Chris Foss style covers, and I was going to use them for t-shirts. And I said to the guys at Cubicle 7, who I'd just helped them get the Doctor Who rights, because I was doing lots of licensing, and I was like, this role-playing games have such crap artwork. You should use this artwork. It's amazing. And they've got 280 comic books, and that's like 280 full color covers that are amazing, and all the black and white art. You should use that for a role-playing game. And they were like, yeah, that's a really good idea. Why don't you write it? So I stupidly said yes, and got together with my friend Stuart. Said, no, we were talking about games once. Well, now we've got a chance. You need to help me do this game. So we took Spirit of the Century and rewrote it for space opera, and kind of reworded it so it was kind of more down-to-earth language rather than the kind of very narrative type of language that they were using, and turned out this 636-page hardback book. It was insane.
that sounds like a lot of work.
It was. I mean, obviously it helped. 300 odd pages of Spirit of the Century, but we generated a lot. I mean, we put everything. It was like every mad idea you'd ever dreamed of, because we had all this cool artwork. It took us 3 years, and I just remember thinking, oh my god, I just want it to be over.
So you've kind of been working with like IPs since the beginning, basically, by making stuff with I was
with Joystick Junkies. We were working with like Atari and Games and Activision, and so we were licensing Space Invaders. We were licensing all the big video games brands, so I kind of knew how to work with them and awesome. what kind of deals they wanted. So I was used to that kind of level of stuff. But so obviously it helped having an IP, and weirdly it was there was too much information. There was too many comic books, too much storyline to kind of cram into these books. And if anything, it was like, well, we need a picture of a tank. Well, there's 280 books to go, and you a couple of people who were really obsessive who were like, oh, I think there's a tank in issue 231, and of course it was hard to get hold of the comics. They didn't have digital copies. We had to buy them all off eBay, which cost a bit.
Oh, dag.
So, but anyway, it was a great experience, and eventually got it out. Did all right, and I was like, God, I'm not going to do that again. And then just got on with my life doing t-shirts and parties and stuff. And then, but still love games. And then of course Kickstarter took off in America, and we were like, wow, what a great idea. And I was seeing people generating, fair money, and we thought, well, and I'd got married to Rita, and we were thinking, what should we do? I'm bored of doing t-shirts, and we were in Belarus, where she's from, and dreaming up. We met a toy company over there that makes really cool plastic tanks, and I was thinking, oh, we could sell plastic tanks. And I was like, well, there isn't really a market for that. And then I was like, well, just why do games? Because people are starting to do games on Kickstarter. Why don't I actually do games? Because that's what I love and what I'd really enjoy. And I loved all the old World War II comics like Sergeant Rock and Weird War, and I discovered Lovecraft, and I'd read Mountains of Madness, and I was thinking, wow, wouldn't it be great if you had Nazis in Antarctica at the end of the war, and and all the monsters and things. And then
all the elder things attack them.
yeah, well, and then I was playing Flames of War with a friend, the war game, and we were thinking, wouldn't it be brilliant to add like zombies to 15mm World War II battles? And so it was all kind of flowing around in my head, and then Kickstarter started happening, and I was like, okay, and I came up with the kind of concept of Acton Cthulhu, and we thought, we'll do these PDFs, we'll build it up, and do a little Kickstarter, fund a couple of books, and then we can it'll be something fun to do. And I was thinking, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a day off and work from home, and I'll also do my little kind of game project, and it'll give me something to build up in the background. And we never dreamed it would be so successful. And I had run a PR company for video games companies before, so I knew how to get all like the free PR and promotion, which a lot of games companies still aren't very good at, and they're a lot better now. But at the time, people really had no idea how to get just basic press. So we stood out a mile and built up a couple of thousand people on a database just by doing these good PDFs that they sold well and promoted it hard, and got our first Kickstarter together, and it was mental success.
That's awesome.
And I'd already kind of part left the company, so I was just like, see you guys. And I thought, I've got to go full time, because if I don't, I'll never finish this. And so and that was the dream days, when it's just two of us in a flat, and you can go, let's just go to the park and feed squirrels and sit and have a coffee, because life's not that mental. And then of course the business gets bigger, and now we've got 26 people on staff around the world, and like 15 in the office in London, and it's growing like crazy. So
yeah, you're not feeding squirrels right now.
No, we do actually. We have 4 in the garden and they're kind of our surrogate pets that we don't have.
Oh, okay.
Which is
well,
great.
I'm glad you still get to do that. That's important, to take that break.
They will come and sit on my shoulder and eat as I'm working.
Squirrels help you design the games.
Oh my God, yeah, if only you knew. I mean, actually, we went away to Australia to see some friends at the beginning of last year for a few weeks. So, of course, we built this cardboard house for them. And we put 3 kilo bags of nuts into reinforced rooms within this cardboard box house, and with little tiny holes, so they'd be able to smell the nuts, and they'd completely destroyed it by the time we got back. So it was quite funny. We were like thinking, we kind of felt guilty that we needed to feed them whilst we were away, because they were so reliant on us. But anyway, yeah. So we have a lot of squirrels. We've even got a kind of little squirrel mascot that we're unveiling soon for Modiphius.
Awesome.
How cool is that?
Well, if someone doesn't know about the kind of games you make at Modiphius, what are some of the games that you've designed? I know you've already gone through several of the ones.
Yeah, so we've done Mutant Chronicles. We rebooted the role-playing game. We've done Thunderbirds with Matt Leacock, the board game, co-op game. We've rebooted. Well, we did the Infinity role-playing game that's just about to come out in retail next month.
Oh, nice.
New Conan role-playing game that was on Kickstarter and came out in the autumn. The new Star Trek Adventures role-playing game that came out in the autumn. That was like huge success for us. And
that's the one with the giant board cube thing?
That's right, yeah. It was just like, how nuts can we go with this, because it's Star Trek, and make the biggest, craziest toy ever? Well, what do we do? Well, let's make a board cube so big that the entire half of it is a GM screen, and it fits all your books and miniatures and everything. And it was really crazy. So it took a lot more work for the factory to make them than they thought. So they've been pretty amazing, creating them, and they're pretty much handmade, because it's, as much as you think, well, it's a box, right? But it's a big box. It doesn't just go in a machine and get punched out. It's got to have all the paper's got to be wrapped around beautifully and everything. So, especially when people pay so much money for it. So so that's been, that's a dream come true, working with Star Trek. And then we're obviously doing John Carter, which is a Kickstarter starting next week, which has been kind of dragging on for a while. But because Conan and Infinity were both delayed, I thought, you know what, we'll just sit on John Carter, we'll get it finished, and so we can start the Kickstarter when the book's actually ready, And so really the Kickstarter is about funding a lot more artwork for it, and the beautiful production run. And then we picked up Kung Fu Panda, so as a kind of another
Oh, nice.
geek mum and dad game. So that's a kind of live action, real time dice rolling game with miniatures. It's one of the co-designers is Christian Osterby, who did Escape from the Temple.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a Kickstarter in March. So we've just been sort of finalising approvals on that. It's another one that's taken a while, but it's going to be worthwhile. And when we did Acting Cthulhu, we started doing miniatures with the idea of creating cool heroes and characters. So we developed a war game around it. But we've been primarily a role playing company. But I'm a big war gamer, and I've always loved that sort of thing. So we got talking to Bethesda, and we're lucky to pick up Fallout, and pitched the idea of basically Warhammer Fallouts, and they loved the idea. And so we dove into that, and so we've now got 4 full-time sculptors and a team of about 10 freelancers working on sculpts for that, and John Carter, because that's also got miniatures. And Star Trek also has miniatures, so we've suddenly got this huge miniatures range from having nothing, kind of a handful just over a couple of years ago. And so Fallout has now become our first really big major war games release.
Nice.
And we've sort of thrown everything at it to make it hopefully a really big success. And it's been amazing experience.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to talk mostly about Fallout and learn all about the game, because I've seen a lot about it, but I'm not really sure how it plays and different things like that. So what was your goal going into creating the Fallout game?
Obviously, it had to be a game that it felt like Fallout. It couldn't just be a war game where it could be any war game, and you just happen to have some Fallout figures. You had to feel like, okay, it uses the special stats. That was a really big thing for us at the beginning, because everyone knows Fallout for the special stats and things like VATS and other stuff that was quite important, and lots of different weapon effects, and the variety of weapons, the idea of settlement building. And the big thing for me is growing up, my brothers had moved away and there weren't any war gamers that I knew in my hometown. So I wanted to have solo war game rules in right from the beginning, not as an expansion. Because I know there's lots of people out there that play solo or don't get a chance, to get together with their group as much as they like. So I was like, I've got to have good, decent solo rules in there. And, I'm quite an avid war games reader and collector, and hadn't yet found anything that basically did anything more than drive the enemy at you. Pretty solo war game is it move the enemy towards you and attack, or shoot you. It doesn't do the objectives. It doesn't try and beat you at the scenario. It just tries to kill you. So I was like, well, look, we've got to come up with a system that actually plays against you, and that's been one of the kind of hard things to do, but it's worked, which is great. So I had a lot of kind of things that this is well, obviously the guys at Bethesda have got to love it. I mean, they love the figures, which is great, so that was a good start. And a lot of them are war gamers and board gamers, and so I went over there to run a demo, and they really liked it, so we were off to a good start.
It's awesome because so many intellectual property games out there. Companies get a game and then they just throw it on some game, or get an IP and throw it on some game and push it out there as fast as they can. And it feels like maybe they spent so much money on the IP that they don't put as much work into the game. So it sounds awesome that you guys are like paying attention to the details of trying to make it feel like Fallout and working hard to make it solid.
A big thing is we don't do games that we don't enjoy, because invariably, like it's 2 a.m. here, you end up doing stuff, doing interviews or working. I'll be working tomorrow on a Saturday, and you end up working unsociable hours when you run a business to keep something going like this. And so I don't want to be working on I don't want to be talking about a game I don't enjoy at 2 a.m. on a.
Yeah, for real.
I don't want to be spending the weekend working on something that is just for the money, because there's plenty more things I can do that make a lot more money than, gaming. And, so everyone in the business does this for the love, and most people in tabletop are here because we love it, not necessarily because there's loads of cash. And I think, there are companies that just chuck stuff out there because, it's driven by people who, rightly so, they want to have a successful business. And it's all about the bottom line and want to make money. And for us is, of course, you want to make money because you want to reinvest in the business and grow it. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's about the game. It's got to be a great game. And, we actually went through a couple of iterations and changed the game's design completely because I wasn't happy. And I'd rather go, no. And that happened with Kung Fu Panda. We got to the point where it was like, you know what, this just isn't right yet. And we stopped, did a load of redesign. And that's one of the reasons it's late, because we did that. And, I'd rather be late. And that happens with Kickstarters as well. With all the best will in the world, you think it's going to come out by this date. Of course, it's going to come out by this date, even with all the delays. And then all kinds of stuff can happen, especially with a role-playing game. A board game or a war game has got a lot less people involved. A role-playing game every book has multiple writers. You've got multiple designers, multiple editors, layout artists, artists. And at some point, someone's life explodes, or the line manager has an illness, or stuff happens that just throws the spanner in the works, and you get delays. Or sometimes it's like, another good example is doing the Infinity role-playing game. I saw the artwork for the GM screen, and I wasn't happy with it. And I was like, could put that out, and we could probably get it done quick. But no, I want to change it. So I kind of said, look, I want something different and want it to be better, which means more money. And so we kind of pushed back on it, and which delays it, which is frustrating for people, but it will be a better artwork because of it. And, you've just got to do that sometimes. So, so it is hard work to pull it all together.
Yeah, I'm sure sometimes in the short term people might be frustrated with delays, but in the long term it's really like helping out gamers by getting super good quality product and builds up your brand, lets people know that you guys are really working hard on making the stuff amazing.
Yeah, I always say I'd rather someone be pissed off with us for 6 months but love us the rest of their lives, because when it eventually came through the post, it was like, wow, this is amazing, So, and you can't please everyone. There's always, something. We're not perfect, and of course, as you grow, you get to a size where people slip through the gaps sometimes, and we try our best to be really good at. One thing we do try and be really good at is looking after our customers because they pay the bills. But there's always someone that slips through the gaps and they're unhappy. But you just do your best and try and do what you can.
Nice. So what do the mechanisms and the gameplay of Fallout look like?
So basically it's we have custom dice. It's D20 skill dice, and we have D12 effect dice. And basically you've got your special stats between 1 and 9. And it's not a normal D20, it's a custom dice. Because if you actually had a normal D20, a skill of 1 would be appallingly bad, and a skill of sorry, let's start this again. It's a D. If you did a D10, because surely why wouldn't you do a D10, right? Because it's a stat from 1 to 9. Except 1 would be terrible because you'd only succeed on it 10% of the time, and 9 would be stupidly good because you'd succeed 90% of the time, right? So we went with a D20 and spread the numbers over the D20 so that if you've got a stat of 1, you've got a sort of 30% chance of success, and if you've got a 9 in your skill, you've got a maximum of about 75-80% chance of success. So you're still going to fail, and excuse me. And then the cool thing is very color driven. So I don't know if it's like playing any game. If you're playing for several hours, and after about 3-4 hours, if you're doing the same thing, you're like, what's that number? Is it +3 plus? Oh, I can't be bothered. And so colours, people work really well with colours, and so we use coloured movement sticks. So my super mutants move yellow, whereas my Brotherhood of Steel scribes move red, which is quicker. It's a longer stick. So it's really easy to grab the red stick or the yellow stick. And their range is green short range, black long range. So it's really easy to pick up the green and black stick, and your eye starts to know how long the green stick is. And so it becomes second nature. And you're not trying to remember that they move 6 inches, they move 8 inches. So it just removes some of the numbers from your mind that you're having to process, over a longer game. Yeah, and and then the coloured dice are really good. So I know that my laser rifle always does yellow and green dice at short range. So again, it's not like I need a +3 and a +2, and so.
Do they have hit symbols on them, or are you trying to?
So, that black dice mostly do damage, but they also have a chance of doing armor penetration.
Oh, nice.
And accuracy, which reduces the roll of your skill dice. Green dice mostly reduce the roll of your skill dice, make it more likely that you'll hit. Yellow dice mostly give you armor penetration, which reduces the enemy's armor. So again, I know as soon as I look at a weapon, it's got 2 black dice. Oh, that's really good. That'll do loads of damage. But I've got a chance of getting the other thing, the other results. And again, I know, again, I become second nature. I always grab the black dice when I shoot my, the shotgun, for example. I always grab the yellow and the green dice when I'm shooting my hunting rifle. So it becomes very second nature picking up the colours. And we also designed it for colourblind people as well. So every rule has got a kind of we've got this kind of code of like the corners are sort of shaded on the sticks, and the hexagons match, which are the kind of coloured dice, have a little dot in a certain corner. So if you are colourblind, there is a code to quickly tell, and again, you get used to it very quickly. So even though it's a sort of 5% of the population, it's we wanted to be able to make sure that if you are colourblind, you can play this game.
That's awesome.
Even sort of bizarre versions of it as well. And if you get hit, all weapons do a fixed amount of damage plus any extra damage symbols you roll. Some weapons get special effects when you roll a Nuka-Cola bottle, for example. And there's a sort of purple dice which has various special effects on it, which you might roll if you've got a gamma gun or something. And then you have an armor dice, which is a 12-sided dice as well, and that has the numbers between 1 and 4 in different numbers of probability. And so you then try and roll your armor or less to block that amount of damage. So if my armor's a 2 and I roll a 1, I've blocked 1 point of damage. If my armor's a 2 and I roll a 2, I've blocked 2. If I roll a 3, I've blocked nothing. But roll a 4, nothing. So what it means is in Fallouts, even if you've got the crappiest pipe pistol, you can still shoot bits off a dude in a T60 armor suit. So it kind of lets us have this ability to have terrible weapons that can get a shot in. And so you might have amazing power armor, which gives you 3 + 1 minimum damage reduction. But if you don't roll the 3, if I roll a 4, I've only blocked 1 point of damage, and I might have got 2. I'll get 2 with a pipe pistol. So you can always attack each other, no matter what kind of armor and weapons you've got. So it gives us lots of variety.
For the most part, is it going to be like your units just trying to take out your opponent's units, like normal, like war game style? Are there going to be lots of scenarios? Are there different objectives?
Yeah. So we're releasing the battle rules for free, actually. So we've got battle mode, which is straight. I just want to kill stuff. Let's just play an hour game and see how many points we can kill. And we're not putting points in the box, actually. We're taking a more contemporary approach, because let's face it, every single war game that comes out, the points are wrong day one. Like a video game, they always have to patch it. So what we're doing is releasing the battle mode for free online. So that'd be the battle rules and the kind of tournament / battle mode and the points. And then we'll be inviting the community to help us update the points every 3 months. And so in the game, you get the sort of set force, and you get a whole bunch of scenarios, like 20 scenarios, which are narrative scenarios, which say, for example, there's a sort of introductory missions, which is Nora, the sole survivor, getting out of the vault, and she discovers Dogmeat in a trap. She tries to rescue him from a super mutant, and then you're kind of fighting your way up to having like the whole set of figures in the box as your force.
Oh, nice.
So it's very much a narrative game. There's lots of narrative elements in it. So yes, of course, you can just play the basic battle, or capture the Nuka-Cola machine, or first one in the field. But we have lots of really cool scenarios where you are, searching for certain things. You're trying to recover a missing, suit of armor, a institute kind of robot head, that kind of thing. And there's a sort of narrative progression to the missions. We also have quests. So you might draw a card, and the quest might say you got back from a mission, and your brother had been killed in the settlement, and you want to find out who. So in the next battle, get to within leadership range of the enemy leader and make a leadership test. And if you're successful, you manage to taunt him into revealing who killed your brother. So if you do that, now go to quest 3C. So you draw the card 3C. Okay, this is what you have to do, and it's like a little chained quest that will.
Oh, so it's like branching, sort of, too.
yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
So, or it might just be a merchant tells you he's lost a box of valuables in this area. If you can find it, you get 50 caps. And of course, so now you have some searchables that are for you to find. The enemy might try and stop you. So if you can find them, you get that, and that's a private card for you. The enemy doesn't know what you've got. There are event cards that could throw up dust storms and all kinds of other stuff. You can go exploring before you play a game. So that's kind of like you draw a card, and it might be you discover a load of rad roaches that attack you. So you make a roll to take them out. If you fail, there's a consequence, and they go into the event deck, and they're going to come back and haunt both of you in the game. You might meet a mercenary and be given the chance to pay them to help you in the coming battle. So you might pay 30 caps. And they now go in as an event card. So when that event card comes up, is the mercenary will take a shot for you for free at someone on the battlefield.
That's kind of cool. So you've added, it's kind of cool because it's like, this is the first time I've seen like a war miniature style game that has like a lot of narrative thrown in there. And it's cool that you guys have the RPG experience to make that narrative happen,
It's exactly that. It is a war game RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've obviously thrown in a lot of our RPG experience into making the game. It's not an RPG, of course.
Right.
It's a war game, but every card has RPG stats. That you actually get the whole rules in the box. This isn't like a 20-page starter rule set. It's actually the whole rule book. In it's kind of US letter size, or what we call A4 size. It's 54 pages in the main rule book, and between two other booklets, another 50 odd pages. So there's like a little 8-page. Read this first. This is how you kind of getting acclimated to the Wasteland. So it's very much like move, put these out on the table, move them, now roll the dice to hit. So it introduces all the basics. So you literally go, okay, that's it, right? It's actually really easy to play. Mm-hmm. Now you can start reading all the detailed rules as you want, and each rule section goes, right, stop, go and play introductory scenario 1. Okay, do that. Come back, read the next section, play scenario 2. And then we've got 5 AI scenarios that have been programmed to be really fun, and then 5 narrative missions that you can play through together with an opponent.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was super excited about, is because I've never seen a miniatures game or war game that has like a cooperative or a like solo variant to the game. So that's actually really exciting too.
Yeah, I mean, because I love solo games as well, and I think that was the other thing. I was like, well, why can't you? If you can play solo, of course you can play co-op. So, if we get together and I go, well, look, I've just picked up the creature set, so let's have the creatures as AI, and let's pull our super mutants as an AI force as well. The creatures will just attack everyone. The super mutants are going to try and attack our, we'll have our little base, and we'll play through one of the scenarios. We could just play through a whole set of stories, and we can also build our settlement, which is roughly how it works. Is you get caps at the end of every mission, and by doing stuff within missions, you can then spend those caps on your settlement. So you can get power and different buildings, workbenches, and they basically give you access to gear, more control over what gear you can bring back from the battlefield. So if you find a scope on the battlefield, you can cash it in for caps. Sorry, I've got a dry throat now. Or you can use it, but you can only keep it if you've got a maintenance sort of repair desk, and you then start building up this sort of gear that you found in games when you're searching, and then, but you can't take it all onto the battlefield because, of course, again, you've only got a certain amount of resources to keep this stuff working. Scopes are beautiful. Laser guns need lots of upkeep. So as you get all this gear, you've got to try and upkeep it. So having different buildings lets you go sort of randomly take a card from your gear deck, for example. I mean, every unit card has its standard weapon, which it's always got. But if you find a better weapon or a better scope or other gear mods and things like that, then you have this little deck. And so a certain, I can take a certain amount with me, but I don't get to bring them back unless I've got a certain building that lets me repair them afterwards. And if I have another certain building, it lets me go through the deck and pick the one I want, as opposed to randomly taking stuff. So you've got to imagine that your settlement's constantly using this gear, and sometimes it's broken. It's like, oh god, Dave broke the scope again. I can't believe it. Never give him the hunting rifle. He never repairs it. So if you imagine this little working settlement, it's like, I can't believe someone's wrecked the laser rifle again, just as I need it for a battle. So so you kind of gradually build up, and you've got a cool little settlement sheet that you're kind of ticking off the boxes as you kind of get these buildings, and that gives you very simple access to cards and more armor suits and things like that. And then we've got a campaign expansion coming next that introduces much more AI rules that go even further, and a whole campaign system that is more developed, and also settlement rules, so you can actually defend your actual settlement. So I might go, all right, guys, I'm going to do a 500 cap settlement, and then you could both attack me. So you're like thinking, oh, I wonder what Chris. Remember, Chris had loads of gun, of gas powered turrets last time. I wonder what he's going to do this time. Maybe And then I'm thinking, well, last time those guys did Brotherhood of Steel, and so loads of T60s. So I need something more armor piercing, maybe, or So it's kind of like a tower defense, and it's never like my base is never destroyed. It's just like you get to rebuild your base with 500 caps or 1,000 caps or whatever every time, and try a different strategy. So it's like, but now I'm building my base up. I've got more points. So
and you're
now
trying to protect your own settlements and stuff like that, and upgrade
and
them.
I try something different. Maybe I'll have more cover this time, or maybe I'll put loads of traps out or cap mines and things like that. So we can have a lot of fun with things. You might go, well, let's do super mutants and let's just have loads of suiciders with mini nukes. That would, because you all run really fast, and so it'll be really mental with lots of explosions going off. Or I might go, actually, I'm going to go for, I'm going to have a whole field of radioactive barrels, and every barrel is a radioactive sort of radiation attack within line of sight. So I could create this mad sort of pool of of danger for you to sort of move through. So you have loads of fun with it, and we're kind of building up this sort of pool of scenery that's very iconic to Fallout, and you can get stickers to mark up your own existing scenery with like Fallout posters and bits and pieces. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to build really cool scenery and use what they've got.
That's ridiculous. Like, when I first heard about this game, I was like, okay, Fallout miniatures, that sounds cool, but this is like so much more than just like war game, people going at each other. I think there's a lot of board gamers out there that aren't necessarily into that like head-to-head against each other where that's like all you do. I feel like there's a lot of board game community people that are going to be really interested in this just for the story elements and the building up your settlement elements, and I didn't realize it was that deep. Like, that's pretty exciting.
It is pretty deep. I mean, it is kind of, you could say it's a bit of it's RPG level of deep in terms of the depth of play. I mean, most war games are, and maybe for good reason, most war games are actually very simple. It is about, you set up yours over here, I'll set up mine, and it's first one to control the farmhouse. Mm-hmm. But I've always been bored with stuff like that, and I've always thought, war games should have really,
and it's been done a lot.
Deep scenarios, yeah. I mean, and there's lots of games that do that really well, and I decided, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're going to do things differently. And I had loads of people go, you shouldn't do that. It's all really wrong. No, you're doing it all wrong. And it's like, so we're just going to have fun and make a great game and make it a really, really interesting experience. Because I think you look at a lot of, obviously, games like Kingdom Death.
Yeah, I was saying it's given me a Kingdom Death feeling with how deep the scope is.
Yeah, and it's got that kind of like, wow, I get to build my thing and evolve this story, and you can pick any character, any model can be the hero. Because you have like a hero card. You can have, you might have like a T60 card, and you might have 3 T60s, so that's the stats for that. But I might have just a really cool survivor card. I really like that model, and I've done a really beautiful paint job. I can make her the hero.
That's awesome.
And so, and then make her the leader, as and then now she gets access to perks and stuff like that. So I can have my own little journey through the Fallout universe and decide who I want to be my allies, who I want to collect as the additional figures in the force. And then, each of our big releases is going to be a bit of a story. So we've got the big DLCs coming, like Far Harbor, the Automatron, brain's gone, the sort of Vault Tech creation kit. So the sort of the Automatron is going to introduce the robots as a playable faction. It's going to come with an actual Automatron and loads of robot parts to make your own robots as well. The Far Harbor is going to come with a lot of really badass creatures and how to turn creatures into a playable faction. And then the Vault Tech workshop is going to come with a whole interior set up for vaults. So now you can take the battle into the vaults and have lots of kind of cool storylines there.
But can my rad roaches be the hero?
Well, yeah, you know what? It's, as John Webb said, we're not going to take your toys away from you. If you want to have a force of rad roaches exploring the wasteland. Of course, rad roaches can't pick stuff up, so they don't have hacking skills. So you might have a bit of problem doing it. But yeah, I mean, nothing stops someone from going, you know what, I want to have a death claw and a bunch of ghouls and a bunch of rad roaches and a scorpion, and just call, I'll play against your your Brotherhood of Steel Force. Absolutely fine if you want to do that. But the kind of big expansion that we're doing will give them all the cards to be able to actually be a playable force. So
that's awesome. So one of the things that's big in war games is like army building and like list building. What does that look like in Wasteland Warfare?
As I mentioned earlier, so we took the decision to kind of go kind of very modern with this. So the idea is we're going to release the points online at release. So it'll be a free download of all the points values and the kind of battle, the sort of tournament mode. And there's going to be a system for people to take part in inputting updated points. So if a Brotherhood scribe is 28 caps, and actually everyone starts inputting that they think it should be 31, then that will help influence the reset of the cap points maybe to 30 or 31. So, we'll be listening to the community, because it's we can take the playtesting to a certain level, but it's only when you get tens of thousands of people actually playing it that you get the sort of sufficient amount of data to really kind of refine those points down.
And that'll allow you to patch it if like somebody is spamming something that's like, we didn't intend for that to be played that way. Maybe that needs to be a few more points.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that, and we'll be listening. We'll have we've got a big playtest team. We're signing up for the next wave of releases as well. To once they get their core box, they'll be involved in that. So it's but we wanted to kind of really involve the community, and as a business, we're always we've just done a big survey for John Carter that you can fill in to tell us what you think of the pledges and the add-ons, and we really take notice of what people say. So we're tweaking some of the pricing, what's in some of the pledges, and we always really listen, and we've done that right since the beginning. And I really think I'm always a big believer in, like, we kind of know we have this vision for what's cool, but we kind of listen to the people following us, the customers and fans, to kind of just steer where we're going with it. So that's the goal. And there is going to be tournament play, but we're also going to have like narrative event where we might have a tournament, which is a narrative tournament where actually everyone wins. You all play this new story release for the first time, and you all walk away with that story event and get to be part of it. So there'll be the competitive tournaments, but also narrative events of days as well.
That sounds like super exciting.
Yeah, I hope so.
Awesome. So I know there's a ton of stuff like coming out for this game. Can you tell us a little bit about the different products in the game? And then I also want to talk about like what all comes in just the core set, and like, because I know I've seen some posts, people being like, oh my goodness, look how expensive this bundle is. But you can also get like just the core game and be able to play the game with that too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's we kind of I don't know. It's one of those weird things that you maybe we put too much out, because I wanted to, obviously not being a war games company, I wanted people who are hardcore war gamers not to think, they're going to stick out a few boxes and then they'll go away, because they're not a proper war games company. I wanted people like, okay guys, these are serious. They've stuck there a lot of stuff. This is really, they're serious about supporting this game. So it was like, look, we're here to stay. This has got a big range. It's got a lot coming out. And of course, so, a few people, and then we did the big bundle that saves you quite a lot of money. That was like £700, I think, which is like one of everything and actually a few doubles. And people were like, oh my god, I can't believe it's so much money. It's like, well, if you bought all of Warhammer 40k range, spend 10 times what ours is. But anyway, yeah, so all you really need is the 2-player starter set, which is in PVC, pre-assembled hardened plastic, or you can get it in resin as well if you want the resin version. And then we've got basically the first of 6 factions. So we've got the first 3 factions, which is the Brotherhood, Steel, the Survivors, and the Super Mutants. And the Survivors are pretty much modelled around Soul Survivor, Mr. Handy, Codsworth, the people you meet in Sanctuary Hills. When you first come out of the vaults, you've got Sturgis and Ronnie, Mamma Murphy, Preston Garvey. So they kind of form the core of your little Survivor band. But then you'll be able to add like a bunch of Minutemen to that. You'll be able to add some Vault Security or Vault Dwellers to that. You'll be able to add Riley's Rangers and a lot of the companions. And then you've got the other factions have their own character boxes that kind of add more characters, as well as sort of unit boxes that add more. Like the Super Mutants have got a box of Suiciders, these 3 super mutants carrying big mini nukes, which are quite hilarious. And then the super mutants got this giant behemoth, which is a massive figure as a big special. So each faction has a starter box, which is about 6 to 7 figures to really get you going in that faction, and all the kind of main card that you need for that faction to build it as a faction and settlement, etc. Then it has a character expansion and a unit expansion, as that's in what's in the first wave. The starter set is basically super mutants and survivors, and you get a Brotherhood of Steel because you've got to have a T60 in there at least. And if you get the PVC set, you also get a big Deathclaw for fun. The resin set comes without the Deathclaw because that's also quite expensive to make, but we wanted to keep the price down. So the basic PVC set was really designed so you could open the box, and they're both in 2 colours of plastic. So the super mutants are in green, and the survivors are in grey plastic. So it's just ready to go, all assembled. You can just start playing. You can get this little 8-page booklet out, pick up the basic rules, and you're off.
Comes with all your dice and your movement sticks and
there's a lot of stuff.
All the scenario stuff. I saw that there was massive amounts of tokens and all that stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything you need to get you playing. I mean, you're not going to have oh no, we haven't included those rules in this version. So yeah, there's a whole ton of stuff. So that's like about $78, $80 depending on exchange rate, or £60 in the UK. And then we've also got that we're selling on our website, and some retail stores can order it direct from us, which is more made to order, which is the creature sets, the robot sets, and some kind of scenic sets. So we've got like turrets and trying to think the sort of sedan cars and Nuka-Cola machines, all that kind of stuff in resin. So there's quite a sophisticated range. And then we've also done this box set of the Red Rocket, which is the classic kind of scenery sets with a big neoprene gaming mat that's 3 by 3 foot. And we teamed up with Battle Systems, who do this great cardboard clip together terrain that's pre-printed. And they've done lots of really cool Kickstarters for post-apocalyptic sci-fi and dungeon interiors. So we teamed up with them to do this beautiful building for Red Rocket. And so that's also a kind of scenic game set. And yeah, I think that's the first wave. And then we've got the second wave is going to include the Institute, which is kind of mostly robots, or synths as they're called. You've got the Enclave, which is sort of more military force, and then the Raiders, which is your classic kind of post-apocalyptic gangs, and then lots more creatures and scenery.
That's super exciting. It's cool that they're all like pre-assembled too, or are all of the
that's
things
just
pre-assembled, or is that just the starter set?
It's just the starter set.
Gotcha.
So,
but that makes it where if you're a board gamer or someone who's not super into miniatures, you can literally just grab that and you'll have what you need.
Yeah, and we must stress that that starter set's got 20 scenarios.
That's great.
So, and it's got the full solo rules. It's got the full game rules in. So you've got everything you need. We're going to be releasing free rules online to download. Free scenarios to download online. So and you'll have there's 12 figures in the box, 1 Deathclaw, 6 survivors, 5 super mutants. So you've got enough to play most typical games. The average game scale is anywhere between 3 figures and 10. So once you get going, 10 figures aside is really good. Maybe 15 if you want a bit more choice. If you're Raiders or Institute, you might be pushing 25, even 30 figures if you're a bigger game, because Institute and Raiders are cheap.
Yeah.
So it's it's not you're not going to need like 50, 100 figures. The only way you're probably going to get that quantity is if you're collecting a few different factions, or if you just love having all the characters. So it's not you don't need loads of stuff, and the starter set should be enough for most people to have plenty of games.
That's awesome. That's super exciting. I can't wait. Someday I'll be able to try it out.
Yeah.
Cool. So when do you think people will be able to expect to get their hands on Wasteland Warfare?
It's coming out in May. That's the plan. We are currently in approvals with the rules with Bethesda. So obviously, we have a kind of schedule we're working to. Obviously, we have to wait for them to approve everything finally. So the goal is kind of late May, if everything goes to plan. But we'll be actually, as soon as they approve the rules, we're going to put them out in PDF for people to download them and start reading. And there'll be they'll be able to download the unit cards and a kind of sticker sheet for the dice if they really want to make up their own dice and just start playing straight away.
Dude, that's awesome.
Mm.
My next question was, since you're working on this huge IP and you're working with Bethesda, what's that relationship look like with a publisher and working with like a big IP, like when they're licensing a game out to you?
They've been really good. It all comes down to if you do good work. So, of course, they're always suspicious of you at the beginning, and obviously, well, of course, they wouldn't do a deal if they didn't like you. But we did all the right numbers and did the right kind of proposal. So they gave us a crack at it, and we went all out to do beautiful figures that really matched their designs. And to give you an idea, we've done probably 100 sculpts now, 100 different figures, and only 3 or 4 have had any kind of issue. And usually it's very small, like the Sentry Bot just happens to be the main designer's one of his favorite things. So the head,
he needs one more screw on the left side right here.
Yeah. Not far off. But we had built the head in so it was easier to mold. But for them, the head is quite a key character, key part of the character, and they wanted it to be removable. So that was an easy fix. But it wasn't like you've got the head all wrong. It was just like, I want to be able to see, the curve of the head going into the mold. So it was just a technical thing, really. And then, one of the other creatures' necks was a bit weird, so we fixed that. And then another one was a gun looked weird, but when we showed them the other angle of the weapon, it was like, oh yeah, it's fine. So everything's gone straight through. It's been really good. And so, as you do more and more, they kind of start to trust you and don't need to see everything. So that's been great. And now they've been playing the game and giving us some feedback and stuff. So it's it's been really good.
So you've designed all sorts of different tabletop games, like the full gambit, basically, with role-playing games and everything. What are specific, unique struggles about designing miniatures games?
Well, I didn't design all of them. We've got a great guy, James Sheehan, who's been working with us for a while. He designed Fallout, and obviously with a lot of input from us, and me butting in, going, "No, I want it to do this. No, I want it to do that." I've read war games all my life, so I kind of there's things I know to look for and what I want to see. So sorry, just repeat what you were saying. What was the question?
What are the unique struggles about designing miniatures?
Well, there's a lot of people with very specific ideas about what a miniatures game should be. Miniatures themselves are a technical challenge. We get a lot of people who are video game sculptors going, "Oh, I want to do miniatures for games," and they're used to doing kind of blobs with texture on, as opposed to very detailed figurines. And then people do these very beautiful figurines, and you go, that will never mold because the sword's tiny, and you've got all these like gaps and holes, and they're making way too complicated. And actually, Star Trek's a good example. Like, we had to make the badges that on the Next Generation crew, the comm badges, massive. You just won't see them otherwise.
Right.
And that to really be raised, and the detail has to be raised by about 1 mil, if not more. And And when they see it, they're like, that is completely wrong. It's way too big. And we're like, okay, look, here's a coin. This is how big the figure is. Unless we make it that big, that you won't even see it on the figure. It'll just get painted over. So
and it's such an iconic thing in Star Trek. It's like, you have to have the little...
And you need to, if you don't pump up the hand and the head a bit, they look weird on the table. They look a bit wrong. So it's kind of... When you look at them up close on the screen, you go, well, the head's a bit big, and the hand's a bit outside. But it's like, well, actually, put that 32mm figure 2-3 foot away from you on a table, and now you'll realise it looks right, because you can actually see the head, and the body looks right then. It's weird proportions and stuff. So there's a lot of technical stuff you have to kind of get right and figure out, and how to make stuff and how to not make expensive 3D prints that you then have to redo because you got it wrong. And then games design wise, there's so many flavors. I mean, we all like different games. It's like board games. There are board games I love that you guys will hate, and vice versa, just because it just doesn't do it for me or you. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with war games. I think we all love, if you're interested in miniature games, you all love seeing some really cool miniatures on a table in a battle. Right. Actually, when you get to play the game, if you go, that's just like every other game I've played, it's okay, but it looks cool, but maybe you'll move on. But if you're like, wow, that's a really cool mechanic. So it's getting that cool mechanics to make you go, wow, that actually, that really feels like Fallout, or that really feels like blah, whatever. And it's cute and it's enjoyable, and it makes you
looks amazing.
and it makes you want to play the game. It makes you want to read the book. It makes you want to buy the miniatures. And it's really hard, and not everyone gets it right. And small companies often do it really well, and big companies get it horrifically wrong. A lot of money doing it. We're still learning, so I'm not pretending that we know all the secrets, but I'm a big believer I'm very stubborn, and so when lots of people try and tell you that you're doing it all wrong, I like to think, well, maybe there's a new way of doing it, and I love kind of pushing back and trying to find, which is why I push really hard to get the narrative side, and I know that there's a big market for people who just want to play battles, just want to kill stuff, roll some dice, kill some monsters, and that's fine, But I also think there's a really big market for people who are like, that's my hero, I want to create my settlement, mm-hmm. I want to know that I can come back to this little crew and tell their story game after game. And I think, we're going to try and support that and keep it going. So we'll do our damn best for it.
Awesome. So since you guys have worked on a bunch of big IPs, you probably won't be able to answer this, but what's next? Is there going to be a Skyrim miniatures game? I know Rob wants to be a Dragonborn someday.
Well, what are we doing? We did announce that we're doing Captain Scarlet board game, which is a follow-on to our Thunderbirds board game, which is a small project which we're doing in-house. And because I don't know if you know the show, it was all followed on from Thunderbirds, which it was this sort of international anti-terrorist organization, mm-hmm. with this flying base, and they had all these cool girls in fighter jets and amazing vehicles and tanks.
Is Matt working on that one as well?
No, he's not. No, he's a bit busy with things like Legacy and things.
Yeah.
But so we just got a team in house doing it for fun. Cool. And I wanted to have lots of cool little plastic miniatures for it. So we've got that coming along, obviously, and then John Carter. And we've got other stuff that we're working ahead on, looking at, because that's the crazy thing. When it was just a handful of us, it was just like me and Rita, or, we got another guy, Robin. When it was just like 2 or 3 of us, it's like, well, we just do Kickstarter once a year and, trickle along. But actually, as soon as you've got 26 people, you suddenly have this like, well, we've got to look after everyone. We've got to make sure there's enough work for the logistics guy and the community service guy and the production team and play testers. So you have to feed the monster, so and look after everyone's jobs. So it's like, okay, what big projects are we going to do in 2019 and 2020, and how do we get there, and who does it need, and do we need more people? And we're just taking on a sales guy, and we're just about to hire a miniatures painter as well, because we've got enough miniatures now. It's mad how that suddenly you go, I didn't know we'd need a miniatures painter, but we do apparently. Because we're doing so much painting.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes sense. So and then that's how suddenly you turn around and the company's doubled in size. Which and then we only moved office a year ago, and now we've outgrown that office, which is nuts. Mm-hmm. So it's it's a great problem to have, and but you've got to really try and think what big. We can't just do little projects now that have one book, or a little game that might sell a few games, because it's the same amount of work to develop one book, the storyline for one book, as opposed to the storyline that's going to be part of a huge range. So, I mean, I've got my own projects. The one called City of the Dead, which is a zombie board game I was working on before Modiphius, which is a kind of Euro game set the night before Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
So, which I'm determined to do, and I'm slowly spending a little bit of time on it every week. And so that's my goal is to get that out this year. And it's a small project, so it'd just be fun to actually do it. And then we've got some other projects that we're gradually developing in the background that we don't imagine they're going to be gigantic, but it's nice to kind of gradually bring them through. But but then you have to go, right, okay, what's going to be the big one for 2019 that will keep a lot of the business employed. So it's you get the fun of that, and it's when you first start, you get all the fun stuff doing the games design, but actually then you realise that you're doing contracts and employment agreements and deals for retailers and things like that. So it's a crazy world.
Awesome. Rob, did you have any other questions you want to ask? Rob's like, I'm good. You're currently muted, I think. I can't hear you, Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I've been talking. No, I've been spending the majority of the podcast actually like building my army and finding out a way of how I can afford all this and like what I can do to move around and if I bought these guys and these guys and I mean,
so me, which faction are you most excited about? That does it look?
I don't know, man. I really to start off, if I were to get like a bundle, I'd probably either get the Super Mutants bundle or the Steel, the Brotherhood of Steel.
Oh yeah, Brotherhood of Steel.
I don't know. I'm really digging in that, and I know you don't want to say it's an RPG, but I love how I can make it an RPG, right? Like,
yeah.
If I wanted to put your rules aside, sure. I mean, I love the missions. I love how everything works out. I'm excited about everything that you said. If I'm gonna be honest, it almost seems too good to be true.
Yeah, there's a lot going in there, and it's why we've been going until the last possible minute with the editing and stuff just to make it as good as possible.
I mean, there's so much that you guys have got going on into the game, and just the story aspect of the game, and to be able to do the different missions. I mean, one of the things that I like about my miniature games is I want a lot of units. I want a lot of plastic. However, with something like this, I don't need that. I mean, it's always nice, and you guys want me to buy a lot of plastic. But from a consumer point of view, like getting one of these small bundles now, or even just getting the starter set now after listening to what you had to say, it's like, okay, like I can play complete games and get the full experience of this miniature game with less, if that makes sense. Because, when you play Warhammer, you got to have X amount of points, and you got to build up this. And
And then
like
that doesn't
the
work in your
story.
meta, so you have to buy completely different.
Right, and then you're spending all that money to see if that type of army will work, and then when you play with it, you realize that's not really what you like.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
This
so,
feels like it's more about the development of your settlement, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I drive people crazy in the office because I love watching a lot of those, you know, the Fallout videos where someone spawns like 200 Death Claws versus
yeah,
50 Brotherhood of Steel. So it's the game we have like a kind of inverted commas mass combat thing later on coming, so you can do big battles if you really want to. And,
Epic
you
mode.
But I'm going to be throwing down a big 6 foot by 4 foot gaming table and pumping out 30 Brotherhood of Steel versus 100 Raiders or something crazy at some point, just to do it, just for the hell of it. And we have got the giant Libis Prime coming as well, which is going to be a big special order. We did show off on Facebook not long ago a little scale diagram that showed like.
I thought I saw like just a leg or something like that.
Yes, yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, I wonder what that is. Yeah, so he's going to be pretty big, and he's people are like, oh my god, how the hell are you going to use that in the game? So he'll be like a narrative thing. So you can have a beautiful display base if you just want to paint stuff and look at it looking amazing. But if you want to use it in the game, it might be that your Brotherhood is still trying to activate it. Your super mutant is trying to stop the Brotherhood of Steel. You're trying to stop it throwing mini nukes onto your base, on another map. So you're kind of doing a kind of game around it, so interfering with it. So will you ever actually take it on and try and it be throwing mini nukes at you? But maybe that's in the big game. We've even got like APCs coming. We've got vertibirds. We've got a crash vertibird that looks really cool. So we have got other vehicles and stuff coming that the APC won't just be for scenery; it'll be to do cool stuff with. So,
awesome. So, what is your favorite faction in Fallout?
I love the T-60 armor suits. Mm-hmm. So I like the Brotherhood still, but I actually like the Survivors because I love this sort of ragtag band of. And I actually think for me, it will be all characters. Mm-hmm. Because you can collect, you can get Paladin Dance with the Brotherhood of Steel faction. You can get Strong. You can get Corp. You can get a lot of the different characters who are companions. X68. Kate and Piper, etc.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to build a crew of just characters if you wanted, and they can just be normal figures. You don't have to make them heroic. So that's I quite like that sort of little plucky band of interesting individuals. Even Mama Murphy's cool. Mama Murphy, because she's got the foresight, she gets a number of points each turn when you activate her that you can spend to do cool stuff. So for example, if I have a figure that rolls to hit and misses, I can spend a point and go, no, I told him he was going to miss. He didn't actually do that. He actually was going to move over here instead. Mm. So you can do like really cool things with her. She's kind of badass in her own way as well. So so I think I'll be doing my own kind of painting up. We're in the office. We're going to kind of paint up our own little group as well. Do a kind of guide to that. So that's I think I'm going to follow my own story with them. And I was going to say, you actually could play a role-playing game, bizarrely enough, with the game as it is. And I'll probably do a game at some point just to show how it can be done, because you've got special stats with everything. Mm-hmm. You've got hacking, lockpicking, command, charisma, obviously all combat and action rules, agility rules. So it would actually be very easy with the system and some, house ruling to do a role-playing game if you wanted with the system as it is. So
that's awesome.
We just don't provide all the setting because, let's face it, if you're a Fallout fan, you probably know most of
setting.
It. Yeah, we don't need to tell you all of that stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome. So The one last question we have is a question we like to always ask our first-time guest, and that is, what is your all-time favorite tabletop game?
Wow. You know, actually, it's an easy answer. There's a game called Defenders of the Realm, which is the one game our group, if I get it out, everyone's like, yeah, Defenders of the Realm, because it's really easy to play. It's the same game, but it always plays differently every time. And it's just, and it's always unusual and interesting. And it's, I don't know if you know, it's like the co-op sort of fantasy adventure game, you know, where you're trying to defeat it's a sort of, it's the fantasy version of Pandemic, really, you know, where it replaces the 4 viruses with the 4 evil armies. And it's great fun, really good. So I think that's our kind of go-to. My brain's dead after a day of work. I don't want to do an RPG. Let's do Defenders of the Realm. So yeah, so that's kind of one of the top ones. Zombicide, also good. But yeah, I think Defenders of the Realm.
Awesome. I've always wanted to try the Defenders of the Last Stand game. It's basically like Defenders of the Realm, but Gamma World version, basically.
Yes, it is. I've got it, actually. I've got it. And the figures in it are mental. It's like a mutant hound puked up on your game table. And so they're kind of, wow, like I need sunglasses, kind of coloured plastic figures. But it's good fun. Yeah, we actually enjoyed it. There's a few bunch of tweaks and stuff, but it's cool actually. It's got radiation damage in it, unusual, lots of cool adventures and stuff. So, and it's pretty tough as well.
Nice. Well, is there anything else you would like to talk about or promote or say that's coming up before we shut this thing down?
No, well, I mean, obviously, Tuesday, midday UK time is our John Carter Kickstarter with some beautiful miniatures and role-playing game books, which is starting up, and that's going to be running through till February the 11th, and then Kung Fu Panda Kickstarter in March, and so that's, if you're a board game fan, that's the next thing we're doing, and that will be a real kind of geek mum and dad game. It's aimed at gaming groups, aimed at families as well.
What would you say that the age is on the Kung Fu Panda game?
We've had like kind of 8-year-olds playing it, so officially it'll probably be I think we're aiming for a 12 or a 14, so it's going to have all the safety testing on it, but yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man. Cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was definitely a blast, and I'm pretty sure me and Rob were excited about this game, but we're to like a new level after learning about all that goes into it.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no worries, guys.
If people wanted to learn more about the game or wanted to reach out to you in any way, where can they find all of your stuff?
So you just go to modiphius.com, which is Modiphius. I guess you can put it in the show notes. Or Modiphius, Facebook /Modiphius, Twitter /Modiphius, Instagram /Modiphius. And message us. We always try and respond. So if you want to get hold of us, send us a message.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we stream these Tuesday nights normally at 9 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/Epic Gaming Night. We want to thank all of our amazing patrons who help us to do the show. If you would like to support us on Patreon, make sure to check us out at patreon.com/Epic Gaming Night. And also make sure to hit us up on Twitter and Instagram. We're always posting things we're excited about, like posting pictures of Fallout Wasteland Warfare, being like, oh man, this looks great, on our Instagram and stuff like that. So make sure to check us out at Epic Gaming Night on Instagram and Twitter. And thanks so much for joining us, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Chris. Get some sleep, man.
Yeah, no worries.